My 13-year-old niece let out a giggle. Mom says if you vanished tomorrow, nobody would even care, she chirped, peeling open the $850 phone I'd bought her like it was nothing. Everyone, about 30 people, burst into laughter. Everyone but me. I gave a small nod, pulled out my phone, and with just 2 taps, I shut off everything: credit cards, payments, subscriptions, gone, wiped clean. That night, I cut off contact completely and disappeared, leaving behind only a worn black backpack. Inside that bag, they found the message. Mom says if you vanish tomorrow, nobody would even care, my niece had repeated, tearing the plastic off the brand new phone I bought her. Her touch was gentle, but her words cut like shards of glass in the middle of all that noise. The living room buzzed with the usual chaos, 30 relatives chattering too loud, not a single one of them really listening. A birthday cake sat untouched on the kitchen table, candles still unlit, but the heat in my chest was already burning. Brooke, my sister, didn't even glance my way, just sat there on the couch, eyes glued to her phone, smirking like she'd just won something. Mom stood in the kitchen, stirring whatever was on the stove, pretending she hadn't heard a word, but I noticed it. The slight rise of her shoulders, a subtle sign she approved. And Dad? He didn't even try to hide it. He chuckled, lifted his beer, and muttered, "Well, she's not wrong." Laughter rolled through the room. My cousins grinned wide. Even Uncle Roger, who barely knew my name beyond the occasional holiday dinner, snorted into his drink. I stood there. Just stood there, looking like an idiot. Like the same idiot I'd always been. Before I continue, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, put likes, so let's continue. I was the one who footed the bills, fixed the problems, showed up when nobody else did. And still, I was never enough. "Thanks for the phone, Uncle," my niece called out, already snuggled up next to her mom, eyes locked onto the glowing screen. I stared at her. My heart thudded too loud, my face burning hot. Suddenly, the room felt like it was closing in on me, tight, airless. But I didn't say a word. I just nodded, because that's what I always did. Nodded, smiled, pretended everything was fine. Finally, Brooke looked up, our eyes locking. And in that second, I saw it. A flicker of smug delight, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Waiting to watch me stand there, humiliated and speechless. "All right, everyone, time to cut the cake." Mom's voice rang out, light and cheery, slicing through the tension like it hadn't even happened. But that bitterness stuck in my mouth like something I couldn't swallow. I walked into the kitchen and leaned against the counter while the rest of them crowded around the table. The candles got lit. People made their wishes. I just stood there, hands curling into tight fists, my jaw locked. Somewhere beneath all the hurt, something colder started to take root. I felt the weight of my phone in my pocket. Just 2 taps. That's all it took. Every account, every subscription, every credit card I had set up for them, for Brooke, for Mom, for Dad. All of it gone in a heartbeat. My fingers moved on their own. Like they already knew what to do, like they'd done this before. The decision was made before I even realized it. Deleted. Canceled. Cut off. The noise in the room faded into background static. I looked around, and suddenly, all these familiar faces looked like total strangers. They were laughing. They were toasting, smiling, having a great time. And I wasn't really there anymore. I was just a walking ATM with a heartbeat. Well, not anymore. I slipped out without saying a word. No one noticed. Of course they didn't. The one thing my niece said that was actually true. I didn't go back home. Instead, I headed to my apartment, tossed a few essentials into a travel bag, and turned to the back of the closet. There it was, an old black backpack I hadn't touched in years. But tonight, it had a new purpose. I didn't pack it with clothes. I packed it with something else. Something they'd never expect. And then I went back. The house was still a loud, chaotic mess. No one noticed me slide in, walk down the hallway, and leave the backpack by the stairs. And then I was gone. Really gone this time. By the time they realized I'd been there, I'd already vanished like smoke. But inside that bag, let them find it. Let them try to make sense of it. The quiet didn't last. I expected shouting, maybe some panic. But what hit first was pure chaos. It all kicked off the next morning. I woke to fists pounding on my apartment door. No calls. No knocks. Just full-on hammering like they wanted to break it down. "Open up. You think you can just pull this crap?" Dad's voice, loud, furious, shaking with rage. I didn't move. Just sat there listening as the door rattled like it might come off the frame. "I know you're in there. You think you're clever? You think you're better than us?" His voice cracked at the end. Not just from anger, but something else. Fear. Still, I stayed silent. I wasn't playing their game anymore. Eventually, the banging on my door stopped. I heard Dad's heavy footsteps stomping away, followed by the distant slam of his car door and a muttered curse. But I knew that wasn't the end, not even close. About 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A single text from Mom. How could you do this to your own family? I didn't bother answering. An hour passed, and then Brooke gave it a shot. She tried calling this time. Her name lit up my screen, ringing over and over. 6 times in a row. Then a message came through. You think you're so smart? Think we can't survive without you? Fine. Let's see how long you last without a family. I stared at the text and smiled. Was that meant to scare me or set me free? But the real explosion hit that evening. I had just stepped out of the shower when I heard a key turning in the lock. I froze. No one should have had a key to my place. No one. Then the door burst open. Dad charged in, his face red, sweat pouring off his forehead. Mom followed close behind, eyes wide, frantic. You think you can just lock us out? Dad roared. Get out, I said, my voice low and steady, cold as ice. Get out. Now. This is who you are now? Mom's voice cracked, high-pitched and panicked. Abandoning your family? You didn't raise me. You used me, I said, casually leaning against the kitchen counter, towel in hand, drying my hair. There's a difference. Dad took a step forward, fist clenched. Ungrateful little brat, he growled. Go ahead, I said before I even thought about it. Calm, direct, daring. His hand shook, but it stayed at his side. We both knew he wasn't going to swing. He never was a fighter. He was just a loudmouth who used words like weapons because he was too scared to throw a punch. What the hell did you do? Mom's voice trembled. The credit cards don't work. Brooke's bills bounced. The mortgage, everything's frozen. I nodded slowly. Exactly. Everything I was covering, everything I managed, it's gone. All of it. Dad let out a laugh, but it was empty, bitter. Oh, you think you're some big shot now? Think we actually need you? Seems like it, I said with a shrug. Considering you broke into my apartment just to plead your case. Plead. He sneered. You think this is us begging? You think. Enough. I cut him off, my voice slicing clean through his rant. I've had enough. I'm done. Mom stepped closer, hands out like she was reaching for something that wasn't there anymore. Please, she said, her voice cracking. We're your family. We're all you've got. No, I corrected. You're all you have. I'm done being your backup plan. Your piggy bank. Your emotional punching bag. Dad's face twisted in rage. You ungrateful little. I raised a finger. Get out. You can't do this to us, Mom whispered, eyes glassy with tears. This is cruel. Cruel. I let out a dry laugh. You think this is cruel? Cruel is telling your son he's worthless while draining his bank account. Cruel is treating him like a tool and laughing when he breaks. Dad moved forward again, but I didn't back down. This time, he stopped short. His shoulders sagged. You'll regret this, he muttered, voice low. You'll come crawling back. I won't, I said, and the way I said it, steel sharp and steady, told him I meant it. They left after that, slamming the door so hard the floor rattled. But as their footsteps faded, I knew they weren't done. Sure enough, the next day they switched tactics. Brooke showed up at my office. I spotted her through the glass, face pale, eyes swollen from crying. My boss glanced at her, clearly unsure what was going on. Then she started waving, trying to get my attention. I stayed at my desk. Sir, one of the interns said awkwardly, there's a woman out front. She's no one, I replied without even looking up. But she didn't leave. I watched as she talked to the receptionist, her voice climbing, hands trembling. Eventually, security stepped in and let her out. I knew she'd be back. That night, another knock. This time it was my landlord. There's a bit of a situation, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Your family's downstairs, causing a bit of a scene. Tell them to leave, I said, or I'll call the cops. He blinked, hesitated. But they're your family. Not anymore, I said firmly. I watched from my window as they stood outside yelling, gesturing wildly, until security showed up and removed them. But I knew them. I knew how they worked. They didn't quit. And I also knew in that house I walked away from, that black backpack was still waiting to be opened, waiting to show them just how far I was willing to go. The silence didn't last. It never did with them. Silence was just their setup, just the calm before another round of chaos. For days, I ignored it all. The texts, the voicemails, the calls. I skipped work, let the noise of the world fall away, and for the first time in years, I actually breathed. But I wasn't naive. They'd come at me again. First it was Brooke, her tantrums in full swing, venom in every message, blaming me for every little thing. Then came Mom, leaving sob-filled voicemails begging me to be the bigger person, to save the family. And finally, Dad. At first, it was what I expected. Rage, curses, threats. But then his tone shifted. It got calm, calculated, like a setup. Son, he said, let's handle this like men. No yelling, no drama. Just talk. There's a game this weekend, our team's playing. Come meet me. Let's work this out. I felt the trap instantly. But I agreed. I wanted to see for myself. So I went. But the moment I saw him sitting there, with empty seats around him, and the black backpack in his lap, I knew. They didn't want to talk. They wanted control. They wanted me back on the leash. But I wasn't the same guy who stood frozen in that living room, nodding and pretending everything was okay. Not anymore. The stadium was electric, cheers, shouts, feet stomping the metal bleachers like thunder. It was a storm of sound, the perfect place for truth to disappear. Section 12, row F. There he was, waving with one hand, the other clutching that black backpack. My backpack. I walked down the steps one at a time, steady and unshaken, eyes locked right on him. He looked thrilled, like he'd pulled off some masterstroke, the kind of smug smile that made your skin crawl. Surprised I called you. He shouted over the crowd, patting the empty seat beside him. Finally ready to talk like men. Huh? Talk? I sat down, keeping my eyes fixed on the backpack sitting in his lap. Is that what this is supposed to be? Oh, I think it's a little more than that. He leaned in, his voice dropping just above a whisper. You thought you were clever, huh? Running off. Cutting us out. His fingers tapped rhythmically on the backpack. But you left us a little gift. And guess what? Genius? We figured it out. Figured what out? I asked, cool as the breeze cutting across the bleachers. Your lies. Your secrets. You think you're some noble hero? Some savior? His voice turned sharp, bitter. You've been hiding things. I nearly laughed. Then open it. Let's see what you think you found. His eyes flickered, fear, maybe anger, maybe both. Don't screw with me. I don't need to open it. I already know. You've been stealing from us. Playing us. Pretending to be the good son while hiding your little stash. I leaned back, the cold metal of the seat pressing against my spine. The only stash in there is the truth. The crowd roared as the home team scored, but in our little corner of chaos, there was nothing but tension and his shaking hands. You're bluffing, he muttered, gripping the backpack tighter. Trying to twist things. But it's too late. We're telling everyone what kind of person you really are. That you abandoned us. Then tell them, I said, gesturing to the field. Tell them how I paid Lindsay's rent for 2 years. How I bailed you out after you gambled away half your pension. How I bought that phone for your precious granddaughter, right before she told me I was worthless. His face twisted. Shut up. No. Let's get this straight, Dad. That bag is full of proof. Of what I gave. Of what you took. And you still think you've got leverage? His knuckles turned white around the straps. Don't talk to me like that. Like what? I leaned in. Calm voice, fire in my eyes. Like the broken piece of furniture you always treated me as? The wallet with legs? The errand boy? Shut up, he yelled, jumping to his feet. A few people nearby turned to look. Sit down, I said, voice like ice. For a second, I saw it, that flicker of fear in his eyes. He hated me, sure, but he feared losing control even more. He let out a weak laugh, like it might save face. But it was hollow. What, you gonna hit your old man? Think anyone here's gonna take your side? You think they'll take yours? I swept a hand toward the stands. You're just a bitter old man yelling with a bag of debt. They don't know me, and they don't need to. He snarled, his voice low. You egoist. I smiled. I was your lifeline. And now you're drowning without me. He swung. I saw it coming. Slow, shaky, aimed for my face. But I didn't flinch. Didn't move an inch. He wanted a reaction, wanted to paint me as the monster. I just stared, calm and still. And his fist stopped short, trembling in the air. I should have left you in the gutter, he whispered, voice cracking. You were always a parasite. I leaned in close enough to smell the stale beer on his breath. Funny, I said softly. That's exactly what I thought about you. Something in him cracked. His hand dropped. His whole body sagged. The crowd erupted again, drowning us out. A perfect distraction for the final collapse of whatever pride he still had. I reached out and grabbed the backpack, yanking it from his hands. He didn't even try to stop me. You want to know what's in here? I asked, loud enough for the people around us to hear. Proof of every bill I paid. Every time I saved your ass. Now people were watching. Whispering. A couple had their phones out. You want the truth? I unzipped the backpack and pulled out a thick wad of papers. There it is. Right here. Proof I carried you. Kept you afloat. Saved your damn house twice. The color drained from his face. And you want to talk about betrayal? I stood, holding the papers high like a flag. You betrayed me when you turned me into your personal ATM. When you laughed behind my back while I paid for everything. Stop. He mumbled, small and broken. No. You wanted a scene? Here it is. I tossed the papers at his feet, letting them flutter down the steps like dead leaves in the wind. Then I turned and walked up the stairs, past the cameras. You can't just leave, he shouted behind me, voice cracking. But I didn't stop. Didn't look back. For the first time in my life, his voice meant nothing. They didn't quit right away, of course. The day after that disaster in the stadium, after Dad's ego bled out on those cold metal bleachers, my phone went wild. Call after call. Message after message. Some were begging. Some were threats. All of them noise. The calls and texts came in waves, a cycle of desperation, all wrapped in voices I used to know too well. I ignored every single one. Dad was the first to crack. His rage turned to pleading within hours. We can talk this out, he said. I'll forget everything. Let's just be a family again. But it was all lies, and I wasn't buying. I didn't pick up. Then came Mom. Her messages were soaked in guilt. You're breaking our hearts. We didn't mean it. Family is all we have. I didn't even read most of them. Lindsay tried next. Hers were all venom at first. You're a coward. A selfish, worthless coward. You've ruined everything. Then it flipped. Please, just talk to me. I didn't mean it. I was scared. Don't do this. But I did. I did exactly this. Silence. That was my answer. In that silence, it was my revenge. They didn't get it at first. Thought I was bluffing, trying to manipulate them like they always did to me. But the days started to stack up into weeks, and the weight of real consequences started pressing down. The bills they used to ignore? They started piling up. The friends who used to take their side? Stopped answering. That's when they realized. I wasn't coming back. Even the landlord of their rental house called me. Stammering. Said they were behind on rent. I told him flat out, not my problem. Mom sent me a photo. The whole family sitting in the dark, one sad little candle flickering on the table. We have nothing left. I deleted it without blinking. One evening, walking home from the grocery store, I saw him. Dad. Pacing outside my building like some ghost from a bad memory. His face was pale, hands trembling. That wildfire in his eyes? Gone. What was left looked a hell of a lot like fear. He spotted me. His expression lit up with twisted hope. He rushed over. Listen, you can't do this. You're my son. No, I said, dead calm. I was your wallet. He stepped in front of me, voice cracking. We raised you. We gave you everything. You used me. I stared him down. And now you've got nothing. I moved a step around him, but his hands grabbed my arm. You don't get to do this, he growled, the old anger bubbling up again. You think you're better than us? Think you can just walk away? I don't think. I know. I yanked my arm free. And I did walk away. He swung at me. Slow. Sloppy. Barely made contact, just a glancing hit on my shoulder. Felt more like a shove than a punch. He stumbled, grabbing the wall to stay upright. Pathetic. It slipped out without me even meaning to say it. Just a quiet breath. His face twisted, rage flaring again. You'll come crawling back. You always do. You're nothing without us. I laughed. Sharp. Loud. It echoed through the street. I was nothing with you, I said as I turned my back. I kept walking. Never looked back. That night, I threw my phone into the bottom drawer of my desk and left it there. The calls, the messages, they piled up, sure. But they couldn't touch me anymore. A week later, I got a letter. Handwritten. Wobbly script. Mom, your father is getting sick. Lindsay's losing her mind. We're falling apart. You're the only one who can fix this. I didn't read the rest. Just crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. They were falling apart. Good. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't. I didn't change my number. Didn't move. Didn't hide. I just stopped being part of their world. And without me, their world fell to pieces. Lindsay's friends ghosted her. Mom's distant cousins, those polite Christmas card types, stopped answering. Dad lost it at work one too many times and got himself fired. I didn't care. Didn't watch it unfold. I lived. I made meals for myself. Slept through the night. Took long walks with no one demanding my time, my money, my life. They were voices now. Just ghosts I'd left behind in a house I let burn. And I was finally free. Months passed. And silence, real silence, became something beautiful. I woke when I wanted. Ate without guilt. Spent weekends wandering the city, actually seeing it for the first time. Sometimes I'd still pause, expecting that buzz of guilt-laced messages. That panicked phone call demanding I clean up their mess. But it never came. I'd done the unthinkable. I hadn't buried them in the ground. I'd buried them in my life. One crisp autumn morning, I walked down Main Street. Past the cafe where I used to buy overpriced birthday cakes for Lindsay. Past the boutique where I wasted too much on gifts. Past the restaurant where I footed the bill for every family dinner. Where I was always generous. Until I wasn't. Now? Just ghosts. On the corner, a street musician played a slow, aching tune. His voice was raw. The chords rough but honest. Not perfect, just real. I stopped. Let the music wrap around me. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about heartbreak. Not anymore. It was about finally letting go. The world kept moving fast, loud, alive. And I just stood there for a minute, breathing it all in. When the song ended, I dropped a coin into the open guitar case. The musician gave me a nod. I nodded back and smiled. Not out of obligation. Not to keep up appearances. But because I wanted to. And that was everything. That was the difference. I didn't need them. I never really did. I kept walking. Each step felt lighter. Each breath came easier. The sun dipped behind the rooftops, washing the sky in gold and blood red. And I felt it, deep in my chest. That quiet, unshakable certainty. I was free.